Today is Thursday, Yud Beis Tevis, Tavshin Pevav. We're going to have now our question and answer session. All right, question number one. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says if there are two shuls in the city, you should go to the further one for schar psiyos. Is that meant literally? So this is a famous Gemara. The Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan, and he said he should learn the Indian of Kibbul Schar, of getting rewards, from a certain woman that lived in his community, that she, in his city, not his community, and she would come to his shul. But he knew that she lived further away. So he asked her, why do you come to my shul? You have a shul closer to you. So he told her, don't I have schar psiyos? I have a schar, a reward for every step that I take. And from this we learned that there's a point of going to the further shul. So the Bachar is asking, does that mean literally you're meant to go to further shuls? If you live in a community where there's a number of shuls, should you go dafka to the further one? Now, Lepoil, no one does it. I shouldn't say nobody, but most people, they go to their shul. Huh?
Story, whenever he was in Berlin, he walked an hour and a half to every shop.
Huh? You go to the further one. But the majority of Yidden around the world do not do so. So they bring over here, in the Biskei Tzuvis, he brings 4 reasons why today people are not makbid. Number 1, he says, because if it's an union of nusach, or it's like a better davening, then this rule doesn't apply. So often, no, that's fine. I don't care about these 4 interruptions. It'll pick up that it's not negeh. Often the shul, you have 2 shuls in the community or in a city, they're not the same nusach, and it's a different experience. So over here, the rule doesn't apply, and you choose the shul that davens best for you. Secondly, if a shul has a larger gathering, a larger amount of people, there's a rule, there's a mile in davening in a bigger shul, which is all the COVID shuls that opened up by COVID, and I think 90% of them remained open afterwards as well. So a lot of people like them, but there's a chisaron that it's not Reiva Madras Melech. But really, if you daven better, then it's ideal. Also, if it's a base medrash, a place, a yeshiva, so there's a mile in davening in a yeshiva over in a shul that's further away. Another thing is, when a person is rushing to work or rushing to yeshiva, and by going to the further shul, he'll end up learning less Torah because of the commute or because he'll come later to work. It's not necessary. And number 4, if as a result of the further shul, he has to walk through roads that are too many people there, so sites a problem from sneeze sometimes, sites a problem of danger or more traffic, so all these things don't apply. Yachadim kol zeh, there's a concept of schar psiyos. So in theory, if all the things are met, it's ideally to go to the further shul. I just read an interesting study that in Eretz Yisrael, they made a study and they saw that the men of Eretz Yisrael, the men in the city of Bnei Brak have a longer life expectancy than other cities in Eretz Yisrael. And the rabbi suggesting it said that the women don't. So he said, because it's schar psiyos, it's because the man, a regular person today, apparently approximately it takes 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. Ideally, health-wise, they say should have 10,000 steps a day. So the regular person does 3,000 to 4,000. But if you go to shul, every time you go to shul, back and forth, for shachas, mincha, and ma'ariv, and you go to ashir, you get another couple of thousand steps. So the person observing the study suggested that basketball also gives you many more steps. Yeah. But a person suggested that that's the reason why the men in Bnei Brak have a longer life, they have a bigger, Pasha Begashmis, they have a bigger health, which comes from the schar psiyos, versus the women don't have the need of going to shul, so they're like everybody else in Eretz Yisrael. What? You go to the mikveh, so you go back and forth. Question, what is mayin nukvin and mayin dechurin? Not duchrin, mayin dechurin. Mayin nukvin and mayin dechurin are Kabbalistic terms for mashpia and mekabel. The mayin is water, and duchrin is zachar, and nukvin is nekeva. So there's masculine waters and feminine waters. Bichlal, the man is the mashpia, and the woman is the mekabel. So it means that there's the hashpois that come from the mashpia to the mekabel, and then there are the hashpois or the hanholo from the mekabel to the mashpia. Question. Is a farbrengen supposed to be a mashpia speaking and everyone listening quietly, or everyone involved? There are many types of farbrengens. There's a famous statement that a farbrengen is einer schweigt und alle hören zu. One person is quiet and everybody listens. What does that mean? If every one person is quiet, it means that one person is sitting there, and even though he's actually talking, but it's not about what he's saying, it's about what he's not saying. It's not the things that he's revealing, it's what he's not revealing. Meaning something inside of him is being shared, and everyone else listens to that. So the majority of Farbrengens, when I was a bacher, was like that, and it's really different styles of mashpim. Like the mashpia that I learned by his Farbrengen was very, very clear that only he talks, and everyone sits around quietly, and there's no disturbances at all, not by the nigunim, not by him talking, and that's how his Farbrengens were. Most people are not like that. Most times there is some kind of interaction. Now there are Farbrengens which is called Tzivishn Zich, that today the Bachim called Tzivish, that becomes like a kitzur of Tzivishn Zich, which is when everyone's talking to each other. Now talking to each other, Farbrengens, you have people talking together, the whole Farbrengen, that itself, there are different styles. There are, what I would say, podcast Farbrengens. I mean, I often hear some of the podcasts that I listen to, it's Pasha the Farbrengen. 2-3 guys are sitting and talking in of Chassidus. But it's more of a scholar. They're chewing through, is this the right approach? Is that the right approach? Like, for example, a big topic that some people like to talk about is, are we supposed to say that today we live in the best era? Or are we supposed to say that, no, we're not, we missed Gimel Thomas, so, like we're messed over, we don't have the real deal. So it's like a discussion back and forth. So it can have 2-3 people saying Svardas Lakan or bringing Sichis and Mamorin to prove this way or that way. That could be called a Farbrengen. But that's more of an intellectual Farbrengen. Another type of Farbrengen is people share what they're really going through. And a person like shares, I struggle with this area, I have a problem with this, I really try so hard to do X, Y, Z. And the other guy says, yeah, I have the same problem, I tried this, it worked for me. And the guy says, yeah, what other ideas do you have? And everyone's talking together, kind of group therapy where people are helping each other out. So that's another style of Farbrengen. So it's really depending on the mashpia, depending on the people that are there. Most Farbrengens have somewhat of a balance where one guy speaks and people, they interrupt here and there and ask questions. By the Rebbeim, it was also difference. By the differences, by the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab, the Farbrengen was people would ask questions throughout the Farbrengen. If you see the Torah Shalom and the Sichas of the Frierdiker Rebbe, you see every once in a while it says usually Rosh Hashanah, so and so asked the question to the Rebbe and he answers the answer. By the Rebbe's Farbrengens, it wasn't like that. By the Rebbe's Farbrengens, apparently in the earlier years, the older Siddim try doing the same thing. They were used to that. The Rebbe Farbrengens and they interact with questions. And the Rebbe, I don't know exactly the interactions, but I was always told that the Rebbe made it clear that it's not the way it's going to run. And any questions you write in afterwards or you ask later, but not at the Farbrengen. So different styles, whatever works. So for some Bachrim, they enjoy it more when one person speaks and everyone's quiet. Some Bachrim like it more when everyone's involved, everyone's talking. So there's no rules, whatever inspires you more. Question: is it fitting for a Chassidish Bacher to listen to raps? So this question is one of the most frequently asked questions we have in Q&A. Whenever it comes to music and styles of music, it all depends which direction you're going. But derech klal, a bacher that comes from a place has been listening to non-Jewish music or very, very, very modern music, and for him it's easier to listen to raps that'll get like Jewish raps that are teichendik and have a good message, then for sure for him it's a step up. A bacher that listens only to nigunim, to Chassidish music, for him to listen to raps is a step down. It's not inherently good or bad. It really depends on the situation. Even a bacher that's a Chassidish bacher listens to only nigunim. If it happens to be that he enjoys this rap very much and really talks to him and gets him inspired, no, I wouldn't say it's a big avera. But I wouldn't offer it to Chassidish bacher to start listening to those kind of stuff. But again, someone that's listening to not appropriate music, and I would for sure offer him this kind of music if that brings him a step up. Question: let's say I have an illegal phone and you find it. Isn't it called stealing, an avera? So you guys know that in the morning I learned with the Zal Bachrim, and when I learned the Zal Bachrim, I learned that there's a website called olamot.net. Olamot.net is a rabbi or gvir, a person, his name is Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Reisman. I don't know if he's related to the Reisman, the Danishes. He is the Danish itself, yeah, possibly, but not. I met him; he wasn't, didn't look like a Danish to me. He's a big Talmud Chacham, and he's a very wealthy person. And he has actually very unique. He has every Wednesday night in California. He lives in California, which a number of people in LA do the same thing. Every Wednesday night he gives out tzedakah. Every Wednesday night you have tens and tens of people, sometimes more. They push a wait at his house, and he gives every person a donation. there are people that actually do that. They come every week. So the regulars get every week $18, $36. But then you have the chashuva people, they get 180, a few thousand. It can be depending on, the right thing. On the Wednesday, when he has the shir, so you have a living room. In the living room, everyone's waiting around. And in his dining room, he has a shir every Wednesday night first, and afterwards is a tzedakah. What's the shir? So he has a website, which is where he uploads the shir. He has a shir kloli. Every week for the past, I think it's 10 years, maybe more, he takes a subject and he brings you gemaras, rishonim, achreinim, tshuvas, and he posts and he gives a shir. And he has it on the website. And if you're ever looking for a shir kloli, this is the place to go. First place you check for any shir kloli, olamot.net. In the summer we did it also, correct? So he has a whole shir that there was a story, there was a mashgiach in the yeshiva that busted a bacher with a phone, and he smashed it. And then the mashgiach was thinking to himself, maybe it's an avera, maybe this is what this bacher just asked. So he wrote it into a number of Rashish, he wrote it into Yasser Rav, and in one of the Torah journals, there's many Torah journals in the world today, right? Many communities, they every month or every week or every 6 months, whatever it is, they publish a journal with a whole bunch of interesting questions that came up, and this person wrote a whole pilpul why it is permitted 100% to smash the phone, and a whole bunch of other rabbanim as well. So Rabbi Reisman has a whole booklet on the subject. It's a whole booklet, it's 20 pages. But it goes through all the Gemaras and the sources. So one of the main sources is there's a Gemara that says, I think it was Rav Ada bar Ava, he once saw a woman walking in the street wearing a non-sneeze kind of shawl. And it was provocative, it would cause people to look. So he went and he tore it off of her. Apparently it was a shawl in a way that she was wearing other clothes, but that was like more eye-catching. When that was off, so then she was still covered. And afterwards he found out that she wasn't even Jewish. So he had to pay. So the Mefarshim discuss that what? Yeah, but he can't. He has no right. If he's the Rav, he can tell the people of the community what's happening, and if he can do it or not. But he's not going to mix into a non-Jewish person. But the Mefarshim discuss if it would have been a Jewish woman, would he have to pay or not? Some say he wouldn't have to pay, and some say it's the right thing to do what he did. Then there's another Gemara. The Gemara says, and this is more relevant, if you see somebody wearing shatnez, if somebody's wearing shatnez in the middle of the street, what do? You're supposed to rip his garment off. Either destroying a garment, you're saving him from doing an avera. So the Gemara learns from this that afrushi meisura, when you're stopping someone from doing an avera, it's a mitzvah too. Even though you're causing him financial damage, it's a mitzvah to do so, and you are supposed to do so. And there's another Gemara, we actually learned this in Baba Kama now. If you guys remember, that it says that Eved Knani, that it comes his time to be free, and he decides he wants to stay anyway, the master is allowed to hit him. Why? Because he wants to stay to be with the Shivcha Knanis. That's an Aveda. So you're allowed to hit somebody physically and cause them physical pain, physical damage, in order to keep him away from an Aveda. So based on all this, so many Mefarshim, many Rabbanim said, it's clear that an illegal phone will lead to Avedas, and that's pretty much clear. All Rabbanim of the world say it's forbidden to have a phone without a filter. So therefore, it's an Aveda, and therefore you're allowed to break it, and it shouldn't happen. Well, I'm not done. There's more. It's a 20 minutes. You want this, a 20-page booklet? You want the whole thing? I can give it to you. I'm just saying some nekudas. Let me finish to the end, and then we'll take questions or comments. There's another Gemara which he does not bring. There's another tshuva. Rabbi Vosner writes that there's halacha if somebody has a cat that is causing damage to people. It's killing chickens or scratching children, causing damage, and the guy loses his cat. The cat runs out of the house. Usually there's a mitzvah of Hashavas Haveda. In this case, in such a cat, there's no mitzvah of Hashavas Haveda because it's a bad thing, it's causing damage. So based on this and others, many Rabbanim say it's an Aveda, you're not supposed to return it, and other Rabbi, you're meant to smash it. Now, Rabbi Reisman himself goes through the sugya, and he basically argues each of these proofs, and in each case he says it's not relevant to us, it's possible he had to pay, it's possible that Shabbos is Midaraisa, a phone is Midaraisa. He argues each of the cases, and he concludes and he says, the only reason why I would say the Mashgiach is allowed to smash the phone is because when you come to yeshiva, you accept the rules of hanholo. It's basically a Tanai moment, it's a Tanai Shabbat moment, it's like the police giving you a ticket. The police giving you is that considered stealing? Well, they give me a ticket. Right, we're speeding. They give me a ticket. So the answer is, you come into our country, you accept the rules of this country. So you come into yeshiva, you accept the rules, and you sign a document, a contract. Even if some bachim didn't sign it, they all know that this is the rule, so they're accepting it. So Rabbi Reisman concludes that, he basically says, I'm not a rav, I'm not paskening, but in my understanding, the only reason why it's permitted is because of because of the fact that you're Talmud in yeshiva. But all the other rabbanim that weighed in on the subject, they all said that according to halacha, you're allowed to smash it, you don't have to return it, and adarabah. So that is, and that just to finish off, you put the question in comments, someone just sent me now, Mamish, today, that a couple of days ago, a woman in Bnei Brak lost her smartphone, and in German and Keil found it, and he writes, he returned it to her with a letter, and he said, when I found the phone, it was very uncomfortable for me holding a smartphone, it's a treif thing, but I asked my Rav, and he said it's a Shavas Haveda, but I'm writing to you that please, you should ask your Rav if you're allowed to have the smartphone, but here it is, the ganze Namais. A very, very Litvish thing, but it just happened, Mamish, yesterday, 2 days ago. Questions or comments, one at a time, yes?
First of all, I heard from wasn't about like yeshiva and teacher, it was about like the school. If let's say the teacher grabs a man and playing with the toy whatever in class, so that's neighbor.
So that question is brought down in the Pesachim as well. These rabbanim discuss it, and they say it depends if it's confiscated completely. Also, it depends if there's a clear policy. If there's no policy and the teacher randomly takes it away, then it can be considered neva. But if there's a clear policy that if you disturb the class, then it can be confiscated, then you're allowed to. Because that's what you make up lechatchila. If you come into my house, then you expect my rules. I'm accepting you on these conditions.
I think also he said like if the teacher asks statement he said about
if it's a filter from the l'chayda, for sure you have to return, no question. Yeah? Then you should return it because that's not a bad thing. Oh, so beside the rule that we said before, that hanholo says you can't have this item. So when you come to, beside the bottom line, this is something which is the yeshiva doesn't allow. So when you come into yeshiva, you accept the yeshiva's rules. So if I think that I can drive 60 miles per hour, no problem, but the speed limit is 40, they can give me a ticket. It's not a problem. This are the rules. You come to my country, you accept my rules, and that rule works in yeshiva as well. That's it. There's a marshal. This discusses. It says, but if you're going to say that you can beat up every person doing an aveda, then the whole day we're going to be clapping each other. So he says the only time you're allowed to do it, some place can say, if someone's hitting somebody and you can't stop the aggressor, only by hitting him, then you're allowed to. Other cases, only if you're the Rav or you're in charge of it. If you're in charge of it, you're a legal guardian, you're a Rav Mashpia, whatever, then you're allowed to. Like I said, it's a 20-page booklet. You have to read all the sources. Yes. All right. Anyone else on the subject? Okay. We move on. Is there a sefer that says how the world was before Sancheriv switched it all around? Those that are not familiar, Sancheriv was a king of Ashur, of Assyria, and Sancheriv had a very unique strategy when he conquered country after country in order to make sure no one rebels against him, because no one wants this new kingdom, everyone wants their old government. So he had this very good strategy where every time he conquered a country, he would make everyone displaced. He would make people leave where they're living to other cities, and this way no one really feels settled. No one feels like, oh, I'm going to overthrow the government because anyway I'm not in my regular place. And as a result, he solidified his country, was very, very powerful. And if not for the miracle, which when he came to conquer Yerushalayim, so he had a huge army, millions of people, and there was Hashem performed the miracle, and one night millions of people were killed, and because of that, basically his whole army was destroyed, and that's how he lost being a superpower. And Nebuchadnezzar takes him over. But so the Bachar is asking, is there a sefer that describes the world before? So there's many historians, there's many history books that describe what happened in ancient times. There was a king, his name was Hannibal, I think he was, General Hannibal. I think he was later. I forget. I forget. There's a name of a certain king that people associate with before. So there are history books out there. In Torah, it's just Midrashim and Chumash. Midrashim and Chumash will describe, but Bechlal, Torah is not a history book. And even though there's a lot of history that we find in Torah, but Torah's goal is not to share history, but there are definitely ancient books, books on ancient history where you can find how the world looked in those times. They don't look different. They're just different countries, different populations, different cultures, different places. he caused a lot of destruction for historians because he made everything mix up. When a nation lives in the same land for hundreds, for thousands of years, they retain everything with them. The moment you go from place to place, you lose your traditions, and it gets like it's Sfardim and Ashkenazim. Because Yidden are traveling, so that's why we have so many differences. So someone has lost something along the road, and other going as well. When they move countries, they lose their traditions. All right. Why do you return your teacher's lost object first, not your father? I can't read the words over here, but basically there's a halacha that if your father lost something and your teacher lost something, so you're supposed to return your teacher's object before your father's object. And the reason is because your teacher brings you to Olam Haba, and your father only brings you to Olam Hazeh. Now, this is the dry halacha. However, the Gemara does say that if your father is your teacher as well, then your father comes first, because your father brings you in Olam Hazeh, in Olam Haba. So it's not really a practical halacha, because everyone's father teaches them Torah, and you don't have one teacher that you learned everything from. Everybody has numerous teachers. Your teachers are really helping you with the text of the Svarim. So today we say that no one's really that category of teacher. So for sure, your father comes first. But in a theoretical case where you have a biological father that never taught you anything, and you have your teacher that teaches you Torah, then your teacher comes before your father. And the reason is because in Yiddishkeit, spirituality, kedusha, is more important than physicality, than the world. As there's a lashon that says, a spiritual death is worse than a physical death, and therefore a spiritual life is more important than a physical life. So one that brings me to a spiritual life is more important than one that brings me to the physical life. And we find this by Chassidim and Rebbeim. Many Chassidim, their kasha with their Rebbe is stronger than their kasha with their own parents. It was more important than what was on with the Rebbe than with their own parents. So this is a concept which is could be understood. Yeah. Who is his name? The pastors, the teachers that taught you more, but they influence you more in a spiritual kind of way. The pastors. Of course, this is all in the case when you can't return both of them. The person that influenced you more to get you closer to Hashem, the pastors said this. Yeah. The pastors. Yeah, because every single bacher, your father taught you Torah, your father inspired you beruchnis as well, your father paid your tuition for yeshiva, like he's involved in your spiritual life as well. But in theory, if a person has a biological father that mom is not involved in his spiritual life at all, in that case the question would come up. But today, there's no one that can say my father didn't teach me anything ruchni at all. It doesn't exist. No. You said that the first time, and I said, I don't know. You want to say it again? I don't know. Okay. By Kriyashma, should I bang my chest by Hashamnu? By Krishma Shalamita, we say Hashem. They spoke about this when it was last week, about what you're supposed to say for Krishma. So we say Hashamnu Bagadnu. When I was a bacher, I was always told that we do not bang by Hashamnu, just like by Slachlon or Avinu Kichatonu, by Ma'ariv. We do not bang on our chest only. So here also by Krishma Shalamita, we do not bang by Hashamnu. That's when I was a bacher. All the bachim in the yeshiva, they did the same thing. However, there's a website called AskTheRav.com. AskTheRav.com is by the Basin of Crown Heights, by Rabbi Brian Shlita, and over there, I gave you so much time to prepare for your reaction. I think you came up with. So Rabbi Brian, he writes over there. Rabbi Brian writes that you're supposed to bang by a shamnu. And he brings from sources where you're supposed to bang, and he brings that there is an argument, but that's his opinion. So I'm telling you, Rabbi Brian says you're meant to bang by a shamnu. However, as a bacher in yeshiva, all the people that I saw did not bang, and as far as I remember, the mashpim said not to bang either. So I'm sure Rabbi Brian had heard from other people. So there's basically different opinions. What should you do? Ask your personal mashpia. You should say Krishma Shalamita first. Don't worry about the banging. If you're asking me, I say not to, because that's what I was told. What if you don't have a mashpia? And you have to bang, because you have to beat yourself up. All right, last question for today. It's a bit early, but I didn't prepare more questions. Sorry. Should a bacher be working out? So this is, again, it's similar to the rap question, but here it's a little bit more than that. It depends for who. It depends for who. It's important for Bachim to have some element of healthy exercise. It's not good for a Bachar to sit in one place the whole day. I mentioned before about the walking. So Bachim do have to go some kind of walking, some kind of exercise. In Lubavitch, they say that there was, on Fridays in Lubavitch, there was no Mefsaim in those times. So what would happen on Friday afternoon? There was a lake or a river, and the Bachrim would go swimming. And some Bachrim were oivdim, it's swimming, who cares? They're going to sit and learn and daven weiter. And the way I heard it is the Mashpim would force the Bachrim, specifically the oivdim, they would tell them, no, you must close your sefer, you must go swimming, you have to have some exercise. So there has to be an element of exercise. Now, a Bachrim that walks to the mikveh every day back and forth, he gets about, whatever it is, a 15, 20-minute walk. Listen to that. Now in the cold, 10 minutes each way. 5 minutes each way. So you walk to the mikveh, it's a 5-minute walk? No. It's close. So it's 60 minutes, yeah. Yeah. So, but it's not enough. 15-minute walking a day is not really enough. There should be more outlets, more exercise. Does it have to be working out? Basketball is very good, or other kind of sports. It doesn't have to be on a daily basis. It can be once a week, twice a week, but there should be some kind of movement around for a bacher's health. It's not healthy for a bacher to be in one place the whole time. Now, if a bacher, it's okay, I'm going to do something once a week. Should it better be basketball or working out? I would say basketball is better. Working out as a little bit of element of it often leads to some kind of I can't say yeshus, but more into more of a grubbe. It leads more into a grubber approach, is more of an into it and thinking about it and making a big deal about it. So that can be a bigger issue. But lav davka, there are people that are very careful about exercise and they don't care about bodybuilding or making six packs or anything like that. In that case, that's perfectly fine. So it all depends on the person. There are bochim that there's a certain bocher you might not know who I'm talking about that likes to walk around all day and the whole day looking at himself like a nebach. So that's like obviously is a major issue. Like something's wrong with you. What are you looking at the whole day? It's not. There's actually there's somebody that I know that many Bachim here know as well, that he walks around the whole day like this. He's in the 60s. He walks like this. So a relative of mine once saw him and he told me, oh yeah, he's a Bacher. He used to work out the whole day. So he always says if he's pumped, so his hands can't go against his body because he's so pumped. So till today he walks around. Today he doesn't work out, but he told today he walks around like this with that shtus in his head that I'm pumped. So that's obviously a crank. It's not a normal thing. So again, so it depends. So most Bachrim working out, usually it has wrong connotations. It has that element of being whatever. But if a Bachar does it in a healthy way, then it's fine. Most Bachrim, I would suggest instead to play sports, but that does accomplish the same. Yeah. He wants to show everybody off, all the hairs on his chest. Yeah, all right. Questions or comments? We're done.